So let's see, I went vegan in 2013, and basically the reason I went vegan was and actually I talk about this in the book, is realizing that dairy milk, you need the cows to give birth because they are mammals like us, and without a birth you can't have lactation. So and I don't know why it took me until I was 43 to figure that out, but there you go, it did. And I can tell you exactly, I was running on Hampstead Heath, and I realized that, and I basically stopped in my track, and I was like, right, okay, vegan now. So
was it literally you just had this like epiphany? I mean, you imagine you must have been like reading some stuff or listening to some stuff on the run up to it that was sowing seeds, or not? Or was it just like a...
No. You're right. You're right. No, I was reading a few things here and there, and that got me thinking. And so there was that. But it wasn't something that I was super focused on, or like lots of reading. But yeah. It was, I think I had seen a poster or something, I have to say. And I was like, wait, what? Cows? What? And that really did it. But it wasn't like something that I had been thinking about for a long time. And that then, finally it dropped in. But it was a lot simpler in a way.
The dairy industry has been incredibly clever at for some reason creating that dissonance in our minds. I remember having exactly the same epiphany, and then thinking, how did I not quite realise that? It's quite obvious when you think about it, but not at the time. No.
Exactly.
How about you, Eva? Be great to hear a little bit of your journey.
For sure. Well, I think cows in this whole conversation will be three for three here, because I was a vegetarian for about 7-8 years, and a large part of that was health and kind of more of the personal and I like to say selfish choices. I was looking for an ends to a means, but as soon as somebody pointed out that cows don't just make milk all the time, I was like, what? So if I'm going to date myself a bit, but it was probably, I want to say, the time I was very active on Tumblr. It was towards end of 2014. I was doing a lot of like food blogging, and I was in that world. And it really just took somebody being like, yeah, cows don't always make milk. That doesn't make sense. And I was like, hold on. If I'm already not doing everything else, how easy will it be for me to transition once I know now that this is an ethical choice and this is something I could be doing for animals? So it was quite quick as well once that information was presented to me.
And how easy was that final step for you?
Exceedingly simple. I was lucky because I moved out shortly thereafter in 2015, and it was like my first opportunity to be like, I've got my own space, I can fill my own fridge, I can buy my own shampoo. So now there is absolutely nothing in my way. Very, very easy. And then very shortly after that, again, in 2016, I began working in the vegan world. I got to have vegan on my business card, and I like joined this vegan bubble, and it was vegan all the time, which has influenced this book and everything else.
Absolutely. How about for you, Emmy? Was it equally, once you'd made that logical connection, a simple step, or did you find actually that there's a whole heap of learning for me to do here?
It was a relatively simple step. Because I was just like, okay, well, I'm not, this is what I'm going to do. It was a bit more difficult navigating with my partner, but that worked out in the end. But there was lots of learning in any event, because and just getting better at reading labels. Especially in the beginning, where you're just sort of like, wait a second, I got to read this label because, okay, yes, these are crackers, but there's animal products in the crackers. Why is there animal product in the cracker? Okay. So you start realizing that, and then you're like, oh, okay, so now I do this. This is what I do now. Okay, fine. So yeah, and definitely there was a bit of learning about different just different recipes, different substitutes for baking, and that sort of thing. Very practical things. There was a lot of that. For sure, and then also reading the material on the ethics and reading the philosophy, and that was very important, because ultimately that is what made me understand veganism as a full picture. So it wasn't just yes, of course, it's my day to day, but it's my mindset. Like, how do I fit? What does this day to day mean in a bigger context? What does it mean, and what am I really trying to do? So those are the kinds of things that I really got interested in, as well as the practical stuff of reading and finding out, and like. I didn't know about additives and things like that, but just because my diet before didn't really consist of a lot of stuff that would have additives. I mean, like like crisps and things like that, absolutely. But it wasn't like a huge portion of what I ate, so I was able to learn about that relatively quickly, and then the reading of all the philosophy and the ethics, that took a little bit more time, but that's never ending. We're always learning, aren't we?
Yeah, that side of things, absolutely. Like, I'm only 4 years in, but in that 4 years, every day feels like another kind of lesson, particularly when you start to get into it. I know you cover this a little bit in the book, and I'm probably jumping ahead. We'll come back to this subject at some point, but when you start to look at things with a sort of intersectional lens, and you start to see things and how they interconnect, then you open up Pandora's box when it comes to learning and sort of self-education. But we'll pause that one, because I think you cover that very astutely in the book. So we'll come on to that. I'm interested to find out, like, what sort of communities that you kind of gathered around you at those times. Was there a community waiting for you both? It sounds either a little bit like that you found one through work, etc., but was there kind of a broader community that welcomed you in early on, or did you feel quite alone at the beginning?
It's a good question. I remember seeking out a lot of internet connections. So the Facebook groups, like I said, Tumblr, kind of finding people who were in the same mindset and connecting with them, whether that was sharing a recipe or putting out a call for like the best running shoes I could find with like water-based glue. I found a lot of people helpful that way, but it did take a while until I had like vegans around me that I could share dinner with, or, go to the vegan festivals with. That took a lot more time, and it was through work, and it was through being hired into a vegan company and hiring vegans all the time and just meeting new vegans every day and pretending like nobody in the world wasn't vegan for like my 8 hours a day, which was really fun. Yeah, but I think it was, a small challenge to find the vegans like in my neighborhood around me, because it felt like at that time, especially, it was still very much the start of that kind of green wave where we're plant-based and eco and like all those kind of buzzwords were just kind of new, and superfoods. And a lot of people would be like, oh, yeah, I eat like that, but I'm not a vegan, or something along those lines. So to find like, especially ethical vegans, people who had the animals in mind and were talking about the issues apart from the menus at restaurants and stuff like that, took a little more time.
Yeah, 100%. How about for you, Emmy? Was there a community around you?
It's a really good question. So I've been thinking about it while Eva was talking, and I have to say, so this was 2013, and for me at that time, Instagram was still relatively new, and that was really helpful to me. And then, yes, again, and Facebook groups and things like that. But I made a lot of new friends. and with my old friends, it was fine because I was like, hey, there's this new place. You want to go there? Or you know, so that. But it wasn't. But I didn't have an immediate go-to person, let's say. But that didn't even take. I was very lucky, I have to say, because I found made some really amazing connections from Instagram with people who are some of my closest friends now. So I have to, you know, people complain sometimes about social media and about Instagram, but a lot of times it's how you manage to relate to it and how to use it. And I managed to find amazing people. And for that, I'm completely thankful that it exists, because I don't think I would have otherwise found lots of people. I mean, especially, you know, yeah, there was nobody immediately around me. Now there's more. And you know, there's, you know, neighbors and so on who are vegan, but then no, not so much. Not that I knew, obviously, and so yeah, it was tricky, but I got lucky.
Just as we're there, I'd like to explore this particular point around social media, because it's often something that I go back and forth with and so on. And when we're talking about communities, I think it's quite an interesting thing to sort of discuss, and I'd love to get your viewpoints on it. As people who've been in the vegan community for a few years now, and obviously have built communities online and met plenty of folks through that, do you see there being any kind of danger to this kind of the creation of a sort of vegan bubble, if you like? So we sort of see more of what we're interested in, and we can. I worry anyway. Maybe you'll correct me on this. I worry that we can get a little bit lulled into the sense that actually, you know, things are progressing a lot faster than they actually are. You know, there's a new Ben and Jerry's ice cream, so we must have won. You know, that kind of mindset. And we're missing perhaps some of the opportunity to push on from an ethical standpoint, whereas I think if I went back and, you know, think about people that I think about somebody I know, you may have heard of, called Fiona Oakes, she's been vegan for 50 odd years, and, you know, since she was 3. And I think about the folks in that period. I wonder if they were more kind of active, you know, in the sort of, you know, whether it be directly protesting or attending, you know, vigils or saves or, you know, these kind of things. I wonder whether we sort of switch off from it a little bit because of social media, because, you know, it's all a bit comfortable. It's a long rambling sort of question, more of a muse, but I would love to get your perspectives on it.
Go ahead.
Should I go first? And, well, see, I don't know. The way I see it is these are our communities, right? So this is where I look at social media like the town square. So back in the day, we would go down in the town square, we would walk there, and we would meet up with people, and we'd have discussions. Town square walking now, not so much. You know, you'll do this online, and so you have you have more people, and so you talk to more people. Do we put ourselves in a bubble? I think to some extent, yes. But don't we always do that? Even, you know, vegan, not vegan, whatever it is. If somebody likes, I don't know, you know, they like sparkly things on cats or something, and so they'll gravitate to the sparkly cat section, and you know what I mean? Like, so we always gravitate towards the things that we like. That's just what we do as people. So, and I don't think, and I'm borrowing language from a philosopher here. I don't think that there's a more authentic community in the past. I don't romanticize the past, and neither the future. We have now This is what we've got. This is the hand we've been dealt. We play it. And if the playing means we engage online, then we got to sort out, how do we engage online? What does it mean? Does it make me happy? Does it make me unhappy? Is it something I want to do? But it would be the same way if you're engaging with people, in the town square. Is that something I want to do or not want to do? And I grew up in a small town in Italy where there was this town square mentality where you would, go there or not go there. Some people just were like, no, I don't go into the town square because everybody's talking about me. I don't want to hear their stuff, blah, blah, blah. Exactly the same things that we say about online discussion. So we just need to work all those things into our life, and I think they can be extremely helpful, and but also they can be problematic sometimes, for sure, with anything. So it's always good to have somebody that you can go and talk to about these things. That's really important. And let's see, you said bubble, you said whether we get comfortable. That's also a very good point. Do we get comfortable? And again, you know what? I'm going to say this. You're going to know exactly what I'm going to say. We've always done that too. Because it's we're people. And we will always get a little bit comfortable. So we just have to find what works for us.
Well, I have two things I can add to that. I completely agree, though, that it's the way it is. I will say, first point on a very personal level, I think social media is accessibility. So for a lot of people, there is not the opportunity to march or vigil or choose to do in-person activity of any kind. And so thank goodness, I've come up in an age where I have people at my fingertips at all times and I can feel that connection. But I will say, even working it and even having my so-called bubble, that bubble could burst so easily. I just have to sit down with a family member. I just have to sit down with one non-vegan, or I just have to wear a vegan shirt into an Uber and bubble burst immediately. So yeah, okay, if you scroll all day and everything is, win, petition, champion this, maybe you'll get a little caught up in that, but you put the phone down and I feel like the real world's still screaming at you a little bit. So it's nice to have the balance of choosing what we see online and letting that be, a little bit of the positive end of the vegan world, since it's always so brooding and negative and heartbreaking, honestly.
You're both so right. You've genuinely given me a bit of an epiphany, if you like. I thank you both. Those are fantastic perspectives on it, and ones I haven't necessarily heard before. So that was excellent. Thank you. Where did you both meet, and when did you decide to write a book together? I'm fascinated by that kind of story. Whoever would like to tell.
Go on, Eva.
Okay, Eva.
I always forget the year. I almost always forget the year. Was it 2016 or 2017?
Yeah, one of those.
One of those. There was a vegan.
The same.
We just can't. There was a vegan summit in Berkeley that we had both independently traveled to. And on the same morning, we both ran at the same canyon without knowing it. We ate breakfast at the same deli without knowing it. And then we had been introduced during one of a speaker's conference. And very quickly, people had asked me if Emmy was a family member, a sister, a cousin, how were we related? Because the spark was there. And I think it was very much solidified. And we've talked about this story at length, and I will talk about it forever. The first opportunity we had and dined together, we took a box of donuts to go, so we would lecture. And the lecture was on macrobiotic vegan eating. And we were sitting in the back row with these big, very unhealthy vegan donuts. Nothing connects us more than those donuts, really, truly. Really.
Exactly. Completely not macrobiotic vegan donuts, but there you go.
Talking about connecting and bubble, you find another junk food vegan when you're a junk food vegan, and that's it, right?
There's no deeper bond, even more so than the sparkly cat people. The junk food vegans, because they're the real deal.
Yeah. So despite living so far away, we had the opportunity to then meet almost yearly in a different city for a vegan event, and worked tables together and did promotion together and did all sorts of basically any opportunity we had to promote veganism together or eat vegan food together, we took the opportunity. And so it didn't take long for me to have the book idea, again, over food, in a bakery in Toronto.
Clearly.
Clearly. And the idea really, like, the book is a few things: a collection of essays and then the workbook portion of the book, where it's practical questions and answers for people to kind of get a better understanding of how to take what they've learned out into the world. But that workbook was the heart of what we wanted to do. We thought, how can we create something for vegans to feel more confident in breaching the topics with non-vegans, and then how can we also introduce veganism to non-vegans time? And so from that workbook and some of the essays we and collaborated on, it kind of came together into one fantastic piece.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and then we just we had this idea. So we started putting it together, and then we found our publisher. And I mean, the whole process took about 3 years from the moment we had the idea to publication day. And again, we were used to talking and collaborating remotely anyway, so that wasn't so much an issue at all. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to think back to that moment, because I was sitting in the back of their car, and Eva and her partner were driving me to the airport, and that's when the idea happened. And it's just incredible to think of that moment and then to see the end product in reality. It's sort of surreal. Like, I don't feel like it's really happening, but it's happening. But yeah, so the distance wasn't really ever an issue. And again, because of all the variety of communication modes that we have, we can talk in almost, not just almost real time, in real time, even if we're, if it's just through messages, or, like, okay, let's have a call and read through this. Okay, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And that sort of thing. So that, it's just incredible. Would we have been able to do this, 30 years ago? I don't know. Would have been through letters. That would have taken some time.
Ooh. I think I would have just stayed in Scotland with you.
That's true.
That sounds like a good option,
That's
to
what I
be fair. The inspiration for the book, in terms of, was this something that you both felt that, this is something we would have liked at a certain point in your journeys, or was it something you more identified that other people might benefit from as you'd sort of, traveled through the communities, if you like?
That's a great question. For me, it definitely was questions that I had and situations I had come across, and then talked about it with friends. And then friends asking me questions, or me hearing or witnessing certain things happening, and Eva witnessing certain things happening, and how do you deal with that? So I think it was more of for me, it was more of it came to me. And so it helped me to think through these things. And so I thought, well, hey, if it helped me to think through these things in this way, in the way that I've been doing it, well, it's going to help other people. And that was actually, it was in fact the impetus of the idea itself in the back of the car was exactly that. Like, how can we help people, vegans in particular, sort out all the different strands of the issues that come up, and give them the tools to work out the ethical problems and the conundrums that you get faced with. So yes, it certainly would have been useful to me on day one, say, no doubt. So yeah, and hopefully it will be helpful to people now on whatever day they are. Because one of the interesting things, so if I could go on a little tangent, so one of the interesting things at one of these vegan festivals where we've done advocacy and tabling and so on. One of the things that struck me, so the tent was called "Why Should I Go Vegan?" So people would come and say, "Okay, tell me why." So I would come up with a lot of different things, and there was one person who brought her friend, said, "Please explain to my friend here." So I explained to friend, and she had been vegan for, I don't know, like 18 years or something like that. And then at the end of my very brief, maybe 1 minute long spiel, however long it was, she said, "I have never heard it discussed that way. And I've been vegan for 18 years. And that to me, I was like, no. No, we all need to stop and help each other out and be able to speak in different ways and to own the material in our heads, so that we can then mold it and shape it and be able to talk to people in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different contexts too, people who are friendly or people who aren't, and everything in between,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go, Eva. Sorry, yeah. Carry on.
I was going to say, I agree. I think so much of our personal experiences went into the book. And so much of that came from like having people say, "Oh, Eva will explain it." Like, "Oh, Eva understands how to explain it." And I would say,
Yeah.
"No, well, like surely you understand it enough to act on it and to feel it and appreciate it as a vegan. So there must be a way to make it much more clear without having, the cliff notes or the infographic or kind of some of the other ways people learn kind of the facts or stats that they want to push forward." It was like, there's not really a ton of very accessible ethical handbooks that will say, "Listen, you got this. Here's a way to frame it. Here's a way to discuss it. Here's a way to bring it up. Here's a way to bring it back," whatever the case may be.
I think Eva makes a really good point there in saying so that you don't need, you have all this information in your head, exactly what she said, you've got it. So you've got to make it part of yourself, to synthesize it so it becomes part of you. And that way, when you're talking, it's very authentic, if I could use that word. And people know that you're not just rattling off numbers and blah, 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 and because, but they hear what you have to say that comes from a very real place. Whether they're persuaded or not is completely immaterial, but because you have no control over that. All you have control over is what you say, and how you relate to that person. So, yeah. Okay.
Would you sort of almost describe it in a way as like a, I'll chuck the word out there and see where it lands. Sort of almost like a sort of a survival guide in a way. Like in a way, I think, if I think about my time in the short 4 years of being vegan, I've navigated many conversations, some very badly, some quite well, I think. But each time having to sort of learn and adapt. Is it in a way sort of a way, a sort of a methodology, a kind of a book to help you navigate those waters a little bit more calmly, perhaps, than
Yes.
than that long process of finding things out and things going wrong, and you barking numbers at people like you say that you've heard off the latest documentary. Would that be a fair way to describe it?
I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
think one of the things that maybe a lot of new vegans stumble on, or something I see is very common, is like a lot of non-vegans when they approach you with these questions expect you to be an authority on a lot of different topics at once, right? We are not nutritionists. We are not farmers. We are not, all desert island survivors. We are none of these things. So when we can, very much simplify the argument, center it on the animals again, on the ethics and about what we're personally doing, I feel like a lot of the confusion can drop away. And so the way that the book is that like life raft or, something to help you struggling is really just to show you don't have to know everything like I'm saying on these cue cards so that you're meticulous in your answers to people, because if veganism is about not commodifying animals and it's about freedom for living beings. Like, it's really easy to take every argument or every conversation and bring it back to that core belief and understanding.
100%. And I see in a way actually the sort of rise of the vegan YouTuber, if you like, the sort of come debate me kind of tables, that they almost can make people feel. I've had a few conversations with people where they've almost been made to feel kind of a bit, as vegans, more uncomfortable because they're not necessarily, they don't feel as equipped or as confrontational really to have that kind of discourse with people that they see from these kind of like almost the celebrity vegan types. So I think it's sort of this more practical guide to help you navigate those waters and recognize. I love this point about, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a farmer, I'm not, but this is where I am. I think that's a fantastic point.
Exactly, and taking it back to the core principles. Then you don't have to have all these arguments about numbers and about this and that, because people are people really wanting to talk about that when they ask you that? Is that really, and when they're arguing with you, when they're battling with you, are they really trying to get information, or are they just trying to get sort of one over on you? Or is there good faith in that argument or in that discussion? Not even an argument, I don't want to use that word, but is there good faith in that discussion? Because if there isn't good faith in that discussion, no one is under any obligation to have a discussion if it's not in good faith. No one's under any obligation to give a response. And we need to feel comfortable saying no, saying nothing, or if we are going to say something, to feel comfortable with the basic principles. And in the book, that is why we bring it back to use. It's not treatment, but it's use. We always talk about, we treat the animals well and blah, 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 which is fine, obviously, for the subject of that treatment. No doubt, it's better to be well treated than not. But we never ask the question, why should we be using animals in the first place? And that is what we want to get at. And that is what we just have to go back to, because then that changes the paradigm of the discussion. You're not having a but and this and that. No, you're going before all that, because without use, there is no treatment. So you've got to have the use conversation first. And I think that is also very, it makes people pause, because they haven't necessarily, not everybody, they haven't necessarily thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. That idea of coming back to that central argument, I think, just absolutely clears the waters. There is no room for muddying the waters at that point, because you kind of can't get past it really until you until you answer that question. You kind of have to. You can't get into, like you say, treatment. You can't get into all nutritional profile of this and what about the. You just can't. It's a fantastic kind of angle. I love it.
Thank you.
When writing the book, did you kind of feel the need to test the material with sort of some vegans, some non-vegans? Was there a kind of a process of that, or was this kind of actually our experiences have shown us that this is the way to kind of go with this, and these are the kind of the arguments we want to put out there, or the philosophy we want to share? Or was there kind of that testing period?
Well,
Go, Eva.
Go for it, Eva.
I was going to say both. So much of it, like we said, has stemmed from real conversations we've had, real opportunities to take these workbook questions and have them out with people in the real world and see how they take them, see how they walk away with them. But then Emmy also had the opportunity to kind of workshop it with people while it was being created as well.
Yeah, and I did workshops in London at Black Cat Cafe, which I love, and in Berlin at Baumhaus, and we also wrote for Ikarazzi and some other publications, so we had some experience with how people were going to react to our writing, and that was very helpful. And then when we were putting together some drafts, they definitely went out to a number of people, non-vegans as well as vegans, because both important, and got some really excellent feedback, which then we worked into the book. And don't forget also our publisher, the editors at our publisher, Unbound. They're not vegan, and so they were able to really they really did a great job in guiding us through that process. The editing process really is a guide, and even when they when they would challenge us on certain things, where I was like, oh, they're totally wrong, and so I was like, no, let's think about this. There's a reason, so let's engage with that, even though they're totally wrong. And then you're like, no, they're definitely not wrong. And then every time, I think there was like maybe one or two things that were like, we were both like, no, definitely not. But yeah, mostly titles. Yes, exactly. But so yeah, it's so important. I think people believe that the writing process is a solitary thing, and for some people it may very well be that, but it's so much more than that. It's never a solitary thing. There are people who will help you along, and editors are worth their weight in gold. So it's a group effort in a way. Obviously, it's your words and your idea and so on, and you're doing the work, but somebody's pushing you along and guiding you along, like GPS.
The crowdfunding as well. I mean, you have to add that this book wouldn't happen if we didn't have over 300 supporters say, we want this book to happen. We are definitely a product of the vegan and non-vegan communities that support us at large, making it possible.
Yeah, very good point.
The way you describe there that being a writer, being a for some people they see it as this solitary, that absolutely chimes with me. I have the image of like a Kerouac type figure with a typewriter and a very long piece of paper, and that being tortured for months and not coming out, and then this horrible process of giving it to somebody and then poring over it and you disagreeing with them and so on, and I'm particularly fascinated when folks who've written a book like this from a very distinct angle that's really talking about at the moment the experience of 1% of people. So I'm really intrigued in the kind of the non-vegan reactions. Was there any specific ones that you either thought, you mentioned you're absolutely wrong there, and then came round to? I'm intrigued if there's any particular ones that you can share, because I think that's a fascinating notion to me.
Oh, in terms of comments from the editor, gosh, no, I can't remember. No, because that was too. Because there is the process of like basically being chained to your desk and like working through it. So, I don't remember specifically. Um, uh, yeah, I don't remember. Exactly. I'd have to look back through the manuscript at that point in time to really remember, because then at that point that you realize when you engage with the comment and you say, okay, why are they saying this, and in what way, and what am I trying to say, and it then becomes part of you, because you've assimilated it, you've engaged with it, and you've worked through it, and you see the rationale behind it. But we've had lots of non-vegans read the book, and lots of vegans read the book, and have had a book at this point, now that it's out, and it's been very positive feedback from both sides, and sometimes the same. It's as thought-provoking for vegans as it is for non-vegans.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's my favorite part. It's the light bulb moment. I don't care if you've been vegan for a long time, or you're new, or you're never going to go vegan in your own mind. It's when somebody reaches out to us or leaves a comment saying, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of these issues. I never considered this possibility. I think somebody recently said, I didn't realize how vegan I was in my own sensibilities without being a vegan yet, that I was like, oh, wow. I wish everyone would take that away from reading this. That's great.
Yeah, I loved that comment.
Yeah, it really stood out.
From the considering the feedback you've had now, are you kind of feeling, I suppose, that 3-year process, this kind of almost hive mind where you've had people collaborating with you at various points to come up with this book? I imagine there's a huge sense of kind of gratification that it's finally we've got to where we wanted to get to. I'm conscious, like I suppose that we talked about social media and so on, and the community kind of ever evolving. Is there already sort of thoughts in your mind about where a place to go next? Is there kind of an intention for? And I appreciate just after a 3-year period of putting yourselves through what you've done, that's probably like a no, not right now. But is there some sort of thoughts already starting to germinate?
Yes.
In short, yes.
We need a vacation. We need some time. I think especially since this is like such a big, it's the UK launch that we just had, and it's not as much in North America yet. It feels like I had the big boom of gratification when the book was in my hand, but I'm still like sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for it all to happen. So I don't feel like we're far enough away from the boom and excitement of the new.
Fair enough.
But that being said, I just feel like because so much of this material was written, even a year ago, it's like, of course, there's new vegan things and new ideas that come up all the time. You just have to read the news or see anything that's happening in the world and be like, I want to talk about it. But I just think we're definitely not at the point yet where we're like, gotta write it down.
No. Because it comes out and it really is. I totally agree. That's perfect. It really is a flattering question. That's a perfect way to put it. Because in North America it comes out in January. So we've got this moment of being able to have it now, and it's really amazing and exciting, and lots of people in the States are already buying it because they've seen it, or they've seen friends in the US who supported us in the crowdfunding for Unbound. So they're like, wait a second, why don't I have that? So that's very exciting. But I mean, the it's the pre-thinking process. It's that moment for me. I think about things in a sort of a really big way for a while, and then you're like, wait, this is the idea, and then you can build it from there. But now it's definitely in the miasma of pre-thinking.
Yeah, I feel like
we
it's.
never wanted the book. Sorry.
Go on, no, go on, Eva.
I was going to say we never wanted this to be like a 101, but we get the question so much about what's next. I do feel like there are a lot of topics that are very individually personal to us that we didn't really cover in depth. We just were like, what about this as an idea to introduce people to it? So certainly, I think, would there to be another Think Like a Vegan, Think Like a Vegan 2, there could be an expansion on what we're talking about in addition to new things. It wouldn't have to be like a from scratch idea necessarily.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's a cruel question for people who've poured their hearts and souls into something for 3 years for somebody to say, what's next? You know?
No, it's a great question because it gets us thinking too.
Yeah.
Maybe a
Too
podcast. Then you can be up to the minute, I suppose, all the time. So for folks who would love to get hold of a copy, and I've got one here, I'm lucky enough to have one. So and I'd thoroughly recommend folks do. Where would folks go about getting a copy of Think Like a Vegan?
So you can go, and well, first of all, anywhere books are sold. But more specifically, you can go to our website, and there will be a link to Unbound, where you can get the ebook, you can get signed copies, and those are very rare because obviously Eva's in Canada and I'm here, and so we had these special book plates made, and we both signed them, so then they can be in the book. So signed copies there, as well as just the regular unsigned hardcover. You can get the book on Audible.
I don't understand.
Oh.
So we have the special book.
Oh, sorry, my my watch decided it was listening to me. So there's the audiobook on Audible, and of course your favorite bookshop. And if you are not in the UK or Australia or New Zealand, you can get the book from Book Depository, and they have free worldwide shipping. And of course, you know, not Goodreads, sorry, bookshop.com, and of course Amazon.
And
That's always the last one.
Thinklikeavegan.com.
Thinklikeavegan.com. Incredible.
Very easy to remember.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me and giving us a bit of your time. And thank you so much as well for writing the book. I think, you know, one of the things that's kind of struck me as I've gone through some of the chapters is even as someone who's, you know, been in it for 4 years and had many conversations with lots of different vegan folks through the podcast, I still feel like there's those light bulb moments you mentioned, Eva. There's learning, there's conversation, there's even just the immersing yourself in some of the discussions and the thought processes. I think you land in a better place at the end of it, and that can only be a good thing. So thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
We're delighted to hear that, and thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, till next time, till Think Like a Vegan 2, I'll speak to you both then.